Lindsey Doolittle is, would I call you a suicide loss survivor? Is that the correct term? Or
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to ask you some questions about that. I want you to tell me if there's any boundary violation. Like, obviously, I want to dig into this, and you are very transparent when you and I have spoken in the past. The documentary or the film or the video, how would you've produced something about suicide. Can you sort of flesh out what the title is and what it does?
So I have two different documentaries one's a documentary, Faces After Suicide. I'm a suicide loss survivor. My late husband died by suicide in 2015. And it's about how people blame suicide loss survivors. And it's also the love of my support group that helped me during, I don't want to say I'm over it. You never get over it. They helped me get through it. And where I thought I was going to always be in agony and despair, I thought that was going to be my life. And they showed me that you can have happiness and you can have joy. So I wanted to show my love for my support group, but also to show others how we're blamed. And then the other one is called Goodnight, Mr. Vincent Van Gogh, and it's to help gently explain a suicide loss to children.
Her mother found the book she was looking for, climbed into her daughter's bed, and lay down beside her. Opal Louise wiped away the warm tears from her cheeks as she watched her mother flip through her favorite art book. She stopped on the familiar picture and asked Opal, "Do you remember who painted this artwork?" "Oh yes, that is A Starry Night by Mr. Vincent Van Gogh. Our art teacher taught us that last year." "Do you know where he painted the Starry Night, Opal?" Opal shrugged her shoulders and shook her head no. "Well, Opal Louise, he was very sick and went to the hospital. When he looked out his hospital window one night, he painted what he saw in the sky and was feeling inside his thoughts. He was sick with sadness. Sometimes people become sick in their tummies. Others become sick with fevers and coughs. Sometimes people become sick in their minds, which can cause them to feel very sad inside. It is called depression, and it's not their fault they are sick."
When I was sitting in the support group, there's so many parents in there that don't know how to explain the suicide loss that just has happened in their family to their young kids. Maybe it's even, I remember there was a mother who lost her husband and she had 5 kids and they were all young and she didn't know what to do. And they were all asking what happened and she didn't want to lie. And then we had somebody else who was lied to when they were a kid and then found out later in life and then felt so deceived. So people wanting to know, how do you explain this? Because I don't want to lie to them. And I didn't want to lie to my students. We all talk about being truth tellers at school. So I used our curriculum, how, we talk about Vincent van Gogh, all the things we don't talk about Vincent van Gogh. I used that and how to explain it to my students. And I wasn't allowed to talk to my students about it. But now they do know, because after I published my book, Tri-County Mental Health in our area in Missouri, they loved the book and they bought the book for every school in the Tri-County area, and even including my school. So my
cool.
book is
so you're a teacher, but you're also you're a book in the library at the same time.
That's right. And the kids know, and it's okay. And they're okay.
It's funny, teaching Van Gogh without the ending of his life is sort of like teaching about Hemingway without talking about how he ended his life. I had somebody in my family, this is in my evangelical years, and I used to sort of think this way. It's just that it was a sort of, I don't know if it was just I was insulated and naive or an absence of empathy, all the above, but I used to see suicide as the coward's way out, like you can't deal. So you just pull the plug and punch your ticket, And of course, I came out of that culture, and I realized that I had no idea what was happening in the minds and the hearts of these people. And I had nearly enough compassion for those who were so miserable in their lives and were struggling with so many, I hate the word demons, but you know what I mean, Lindsey. Many of them struggling with intense depression, which very often relates to brain chemistry and some issues in the body. And the cost benefit for them was, I'd rather end it than have to live another day like that. Do you find there is a culture with an absence of empathy out there? Maybe it's rooted in ignorance. I don't know. What's your perspective, Lindsey?
I think it's what we've been taught. When my late husband died, he was a sergeant for 16 years with the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department. And by the way, people don't like it when I say his department's name, but they liked it when I stood by his side proudly for 16 years, but not when he died. They don't want their names out there. But the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department, I thought they were going to be there for me. And I thought they were my family in blue, and they weren't. And I was shunned and blamed the moment Brett died. I found my late husband. I called his police department. They came out, they kept their distance, and they've always kept their distance from me since then. But I mean, like, I was screaming for help on my knees and my arms on the ground outside, asking them for help, and they all stayed away. And even that night, like, the first officer to talk to me yelled at me, told me to stay on my couch and don't move. And then from there, it was just nobody would talk to me. Everybody was silent. They did do an investigation. They know how to work homicide. They don't really know how to work suicide. But I get it. They want to make sure that it was a suicide. But thankfully, my late husband was very methodical in what he left behind to make sure that I wasn't going to be blamed.
Sure. I think the first thing they do, right, is look at the partner. I mean, I get that. I mean, I understand that. It's interesting. There is a culture of physicality. Now, I'm not, when you talk about police officers, people like this to be either or. And I'm one of those people that thinks there are rampant problems in law enforcement that need to be addressed. I also know police officers who do a terrible and difficult job, who have to carry all this stuff home with them, who genuinely do want to do the right thing. And so, you know, this doesn't fit in a box. I think it's situational and it's individual, but we do see a male-dominated culture where many of these men have not been taught, trained, or encouraged to sort of peel back the onion and understand how to deal with nuanced emotion. And so everything becomes kind of a physical response. And if something happens, a member of their troop or team or someone representing their department dies by suicide, they have no idea emotionally how to deal with that. You get the vibe it was that, or maybe it was just he brought shame on the department. Again, I know it's conjecture, but you had a front row seat.
Both. I would say both. And like, I say that because even at his funeral, the chief, he didn't wear his uniform. He wore a suit. And I thought every officer got a uniform. And he spoke maybe less than a minute. It was very topical. It was heartbreaking to hear the words that came out of his mouth. And then after the funeral, I tried to reach out several times, and I was ignored several times. I wrote a letter, and he never responded. I just wanted to. At the beginning, it was just trying to defend myself. I felt blamed. I blamed myself. I was blamed in a police report and an autopsy report by the department, though my late husband in his suicide letter blamed his job for his death, but they didn't write that in the police report.
Speaking here with author and producer Lindsey Doolittle, She is author of the book Good Night, Mr. Vincent van Gogh, and producer of the documentary Faces After Suicide. Is there a lot of partner blaming? Is there blaming of those left behind? Why didn't you make them happier? Why didn't you report it? Why didn't you help solve their problem? Is there a culture of blaming those who remain in the wake of a suicide?
Absolutely. I feel that suicide is different. The people who have lost someone to an accident or an illness, a disease, maybe a line of duty death, the mourners receive sympathy and compassion. And whereas the suicide loss survivors, they encounter blame, judgment, they're shunned.
Sure. What was going on behind closed doors? Right.
Right. Like, you drove them to this. They didn't love you enough. This is your responsibility. We feel a failure of responsibility if it's your spouse, that you should have known, you should have been there, you should have been able to stop them. But it doesn't matter how much they love you or how much you love them, that it wasn't your choice. And I don't even see suicide as a choice. I feel like suicide is when someone has run out of choices.
Did you go through that? I mean, there's always that tug of war that we all have as humans, the rational and the emotional brain going back and forth. Did you blame yourself?
Yes. I blamed myself for a very long time, probably about 3.5 years, just so much guilt. He had attempted in front of me 4 months prior to his death. And I told his best friend and told him that he had attempted, and I didn't tell anybody else. And, his friend went over, talked with him, and I do not blame his friend at all. But they I shouldn't say but, and they talked, and my husband said I made everything up. He lied to his best friend. And what do best friends do?
Yeah, he's going to cover for his buddy and take his side. Yeah. Until
it was after the funeral that I found out that he had lied to him. But and then people were angry. They said I should have told them. He had a cousin in the department that said I told them, but I didn't even really know this cousin. I went and tried to get his help at marriage counseling. I didn't tell the marriage counselor he had attempted. She did ask him if he had attempted on his life, and he lied. I sat there crying, but he lied to our marriage counselor. And I kept on to that lie because I thought, is anybody going to believe me? And is he going to leave me? And, I didn't call the police because he was the police. So I was put in this really difficult position of, I don't know what to do. And I'm not the only one. And I know right now I'm not the only one. There's people that reach out to me. What do I do? My husband, who is a cop, this is what's happening. He's threatened me. He's threatened our children. What do I do? But he's not like that around other people. What do I do? And there are resources that I can give you, Seth. That might help others. I know there's something called a cop line where people can call in. It's very confidential. Cops can talk to other cops. But I mean, I was scared in our household, and I didn't tell anybody. There was things that were happening that were just out of my scope, and I wanted to be there. I wanted to be there to help him, but I didn't know what to do.
Finding help with anonymity does seem like it would be more attractive in law enforcement. Isn't there a stigma? Like if, I hate the word shrink, but we all know what I mean, right? Let's say you're a law enforcement officer and you're having issues and you go see a psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever, and it gets out. They worry about the stigma, all right? Might it limit me? Am I going to be judged by my buddies? Will I be limited in terms of promotion because they think I'm not going to be able to handle it? Would that be accurate?
Yeah, my late husband said he didn't want to be labeled clinically depressed. He said that they would take his gun. They should have taken his gun. He shouldn't have had his gun on him.
The word suicide, like I used to say more commit suicide. Now I say die by suicide. And I think it's because I don't know, we're maneuvering our language a little bit, trying to be fair. Commit sounds like you're almost committing a crime. I don't know. Do you go through those discussions about, is it just semantics? What's your perspective?
Yeah, committing suicide sounds like you're committing a crime, committing a sin. And I've spoken in churches, and they say how it's a sin. I prefer saying die by suicide.
It's a mortal sin, I think, in the Catholic Church.
I mean, I've been told my husband's burning in hell. I was told he's up in heaven. He's watching down over me. I've been told he's walking alongside me. I'm like, can everybody just make up their mind?
Did you, in your recovery, have that thing where, let's say, sparks of joy came your way? You're at a party and you find yourself laughing, and all of a sudden you realize you're feeling good about something. Did you feel guilty then? You know, why I'm not supposed to feel good. I've suffered a tremendous loss. Did you feel like you had betrayed your late husband in that way?
Oh yeah, like people, you feel like your pain equals how much you love them. And if I show any ounce of happiness, then I'm showing that I didn't love him, or showing that I didn't love the person I've lost. And where that's not true. It took me a long time to figure that out. But I was also shamed I remember throwing a party at my house several months later, just wanting to feel something other than agony and despair. And I had friends over, and somebody had said I wasn't acting like how a widow should be acting. And that like sent me back. Then I thought, okay, I can't have a party. I can't be happy. People will think that I didn't love him. But it's taken me a long time to where, yes, I go out, I have fun, I date. That's not it's not a healthy way of living, is to show how much you love somebody by showing how much pain you're in.
I used to hold to there are 5 stages of grief, and they must happen in this order, or they will happen in this order, perhaps is a better way of saying it. Now I don't hold to the stages of grief. I can't even at the top of my head remember what they are. I think there's anger and denial and confusion and blah, blah, blah. And then I think there is no correct way to grieve. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I feel like it's a tornado. Whoever said there was like 12 or 5 stages of grief, I don't know. I think I called BS on that because, and you can feel so many different things at one time. And that first year is like survival mode. You will do anything to numb that pain. I did things that I never thought I would ever do in my life. And I was numbing my pain in so many unhealthy ways. And then the second year is like the fog has lifted, and now you're really having to deal with that person not being there. And he affected so many people, like a whole police department of 500, our mailman, his cousins, my nieces and nephews. But I feel like there's a secondary losses, tertiary, but there's the intermediate, the primary, and they're the ones that's like, it's in your face 24/7. You can't get away from it. But over time, it does slide to like your peripheral, and it's always there with you. And triggers happen too. And somebody had mentioned to me, another suicide loss survivor, I loved their analogy. It was kind of like, it's a box, and inside the box, there's a red button for your trigger. And then there's a bouncy ball, and it's bouncing and it's going haywire. And sometimes it will hit that trigger button, and you don't know when, and you don't know what's going to trigger you. I know I have some triggers, but even yesterday, there was a trigger that happened that I didn't really even think about, and started sending me downwards. It doesn't happen as frequent or as intense as it used to, but it's there every day.
So tell me some of the things that give you joy. Right? Let's not, stay in the valley. Come on. What makes you smile and laugh, and what fills your heart?
Oh. Mm.
So that's kind of a Barbara Walters question, but I'm interested. You are on your journey, that you have begun to reconnect with the things that's, I don't know, the positivity of being alive. And I'm just curious.
Yeah, knowing that, people say you die only, or they say you live only once. And I say you die only once, and you live all the way up until that time. And so I love traveling. I don't know, making these films has really helped distract my mind, and I love meeting people along the way. Like being able to hear their stories. This is just a new medium for me. So when people come to the art exhibit, there's 3 components to it. We have the drawings of the different loss survivors. There's also letters that loss survivors can write to their loved ones so the public can read them. And these letters are whatever they want to write, whatever they are feeling, because whatever they're feeling is justified. And if they have rage, they can express that rage to them. If they are at peace and they want to let them know what they're missing out on, it's whatever they want. The third component is different resources from around the world of prevention and awareness groups. Anybody who's ever thought of ending their life and thinking that their family or their friends will be better off without them, I hope that they come to this show, but I hope that they find a new perspective.
I think a lot of people who go through trauma, part of their road through, if not a way out, is to commit themselves to perhaps making the journey better or easier to navigate for others. I totally buy that, Lindsey.
Yeah, I submit my films to where I want to travel to. So it was one of my films, well, 2 of my films was selected to go to Scotland to their international film festival. And I got to meet so many people and see so many different things and try new foods and hear new stories. And the judge was from Braveheart, who played Robert the Bruce. And it was so awesome to meet him.
Way. No way. That's like a story you will tell for the rest of your life. That's amazing. That's on my bucket list. Never been to Scotland. I just want to go to the Scottish Highlands, and I want to hold a sword up to the sky and experience the quickening, because that's part of one of my favorite films, So the fact that you were there, was it lovely? Was it amazing?
It was magical. Yeah. And I took my dad. I wanted to take my dad on a trip, so it was special to share that with him. And we went hopping.
We find your work, I know the book is, can I find the book on Amazon, Goodnight, Mr. Vincent van Gogh?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's actually also in the Vincent van Gogh Library in the Netherlands on permanent display, because they said it's something that needs to be talked about out there too.
And then Faces After Suicide, the documentary. How do I find it?
It's on my website. I put it up there for free. Now that it's out of film festivals, it's been doing a film festival circuit for over a year.
What is your website?
www.abovtherug.com, because I feel like a lot of people sweep suicide under the rug, so I'm above the rug. You
are currently working on a new documentary for Recovering from Religion. Can you tell us about that real fast?
Yeah, the documentary is called Recovering from Religion, and I want to get that resource out to as many people and audience members as possible. I want to show those who might not even know that this organization exists globally, that there is a place, a safe place, a brave place that is helping and supporting those who are having doubts about their faith, or maybe they're disfellowshipped. They feel completely alone, or they don't know how to come out to those that they love, that they're exploring their doubts. This organization, Recovering from Religion, I just want people to know about this resource. And at the same token, I want those who are causing the damage, I want them to be able to see that in the audience. I think that would be, maybe they don't know that they're causing the damage. Maybe they do, I don't know. But I'm hoping that maybe this might help in different ways.
Is there a way we can support that? Like, it's still going on, but is there something we can do to help make that happen? I'm a huge RFR fan. I've produced content for them, and I just love them to death. Is there anything we can do for you?
Yeah. So we're doing a GoFundMe so we can continue filming, because we've already filmed at the American Atheist Conference where I met you and got your interview, and several other people who are supporters of RFR. The fall excursion is next, and then we're going to be going over to Dr. Darrell Ray's house and filming him over there in Kansas City. So as an independent filmmaker, GoFundMes are great to help, with plane tickets and lodging, because it's not just me. I have a whole crew that I have set up. And right now, the producer, me, is funding and fronting the money. So it'd be nice to get some funding out there. So they say don't ask people for money. You don't do that. But I'm like, that's basically what we're asking. If you want to be part of this opportunity for people to be supported and get that out into film festivals. And at the same time, maybe you're going to piss off a lot of people. That could be fun too. I don't know.
You and I spoke for 45 minutes. How in the world are you going to whittle all this down into a documentary, right?
I have a ruthless editor right now that I am so angry with, but that's what you need. I want to keep everything, but we're taking what we is awesome. Everything's awesome. That's why it's so hard. So
Lindsey Doolittle releases a 25-hour documentary on what so I see that. Like, you fall in love with the material because you feel like everything kind of matters. And so you're right. You kind of need an objective, almost brutal third party to come in with an X-Acto knife and say, all right, fine. So, okay, let us know what happens. I'll put the support link, the GoFundMe, in the description box as well. You are amazing. Lindsey Doolittle, thanks so much for talking to me.
Thank you.